What's up, guys? So I got a super hyper specific request to check out smartphones, budget smartphones that have 128 gigs of storage and 6 gigs of RAM, and these are going to be under 300 bucks. So all of these phones you could find either for 300 bucks even or under. So the first phone is the Xiaomi Poco Phone X3, the NFC version. This is an excellent phone. I really enjoyed my time with this phone. So you actually have an aluminum frame on here, which is really nice. Now it is a plastic back. I'm not the biggest fan of this phone's design as far as the camera module. I still think it looks kind of odd to me, but some people like it, some people don't. It does have a IP53 splash proof, which means that you can get it wet and it won't break immediately. Now the really cool highlight with this phone is the IPS 120 Hertz display. So this phone is just going to be silky smooth. It's a really big display at 6.7 inches, and you also have a 1080p resolution with 395 for the PPI. Pretty slim bezels, a little punch hole. The screen looked great for an IPS display, very colorful, very bright. This phone also comes with Android 10, and you should get the Android 11 update with MIUI 12, and it is a very highly customizable skin. It's one of those heavier skins that just have a lot packed into it as far as customization and stuff like that, but overall I found the phone to be very smooth. So you do have the Snapdragon 732G processor and the Adreno 618 GPU on here, so you can actually do a little bit of gaming on here. I have a full gaming test on this phone if you guys want to check that out. Basically, it'll play anything in the Google Play Store, Call of Duty, Fortnite, whatever you want to play. It will go ahead and play it. Now, you won't be able to max it out like a flagship phone, but you will be able to play it at pretty much medium to high settings. So you do have micro SD support, 128 gigs of storage and 6 gigs of RAM. You also have on here the headphone jack as well, which is always nice to see, and you actually have stereo speakers as well, which are very loud, sound very good. So this phone also has NFC on board, of course, with the infrared port, which is kind of a slept on feature. You get to you can control your TV, air conditioner, you control a lot of stuff with your infrared port. So I've always thought that was a really cool addition to have on a smartphone. And your physical fingerprint scanner is located on the power button on the side, and that is one of the best places to put it. So the cameras on the Poco X3 are really good as well. It's a quad camera setup at 64 megapixels. You also have a 13 megapixel ultra wide, 2 megapixel Mac, and 2 megapixel depth sensor. You also have 4K video, a 20 megapixel selfie camera, and as you can see from the shots, you get some really bright and nice and colorful photos on here. Pretty good detail, good depth of field, white balance was on point. Overall, I enjoyed the cameras on here. You can see for yourself, video is also pretty solid on this phone as well. So I had really no issues. The front facing camera performed really well too. So the battery life is really another highlight with this phone. You have a massive 5,160 milliamp battery, 33 watt fast charging, so it charges very fast as well. But this is definitely a 2-day phone if you're a light user, and even if you're a heavy user, you can easily get through the day with this phone, no problem. So this is not a phone you have to worry about with battery life. Next is the Samsung Galaxy A70. I was super surprised at how much I actually like this phone. Just the feel and One UI, everything is just super smooth on this phone. So it's not doing anything really flashy with the design. It's got a plastic back, plastic frame. Now I recommend the psychedelic shifting color because I think that's just one of the coolest looking designs on any smartphone. I just think it looks really cool, really unique. You also have a Super AMOLED display. It's a very nice water drop notch AMOLED display. Very deep blacks, beautiful vibrant colors, classic Samsung AMOLED display here. It's a big display at 6.7 inches. It's 1080p, 395 for the PPI. Absolutely love the display on here. It is really beautiful. You do have Android 10 with the latest One UI. I expect this to get Android 11, and you have the Snapdragon 675 and Adreno 612, which this phone ran perfectly smooth running One UI and also playing video games and stuff like that. Again, you can't can't max stuff out, but it was really smooth. I had no issues with lag or playing anything in the Play Store. It was really, really nice. And again, for storage, you have 128 gigs, 6 gigs of RAM with micro SD support, which is always nice. Your headphone jack is on board. There is only a single firing speaker. I would have loved to see stereo speakers on this phone, but the speaker sounds fine, the single one by itself. You also have NFC on this guy, and the fingerprint scanner is under the display, and it works just fine. It's not the fastest fingerprint scanner, but I've never had an issue actually getting into the phone. And this phone does have face unlock as well, so if you don't want to use that, you do have that option, which is always nice. So this phone has pretty good cameras. I would say amazing. I wouldn't even say the best on this list, but they were okay. You can see from the photos yourself. You have a triple camera setup, 32 megapixel standard, 8 megapixel ultra wide, 5 megapixel depth sensor, 4K video, 32 megapixel selfie, 1080p video. My only complaint was that the photos were a little bit soft when you get out of good lighting. Like if you're in average to low lighting, then you sort of notice softer photos, but in good lighting, this camera excels. It looks great. Colors, detail, everything looks awesome. Video also is pretty good on here. The selfie camera is pretty good on here as well. So again, good light, you'll get a good shot with this. So you do have very good battery life as well. A 4,500 milliamp battery with 25 watt fast charging. So this is another phone that can easily last all day. Next is the Realme 6 Pro. So this again is another awesome phone. I do love the design on here. I think it looks really cool as well. You've actually got a completely premium design. It's a glass back and plastic frame on here, so it just feels super solid, has a nice weight to it. It's got an IPS 90 Hz display, so it's just going to be silky smooth when you're scrolling and stuff like that. It's a 6.6 inch display, 1080p, 399 for the PPI. My only thing with this is that some people might not like it because you have the double punch hole, so you have the dual, selfie cameras, but it's just kind of big. And I mean, when I was using the phone, once you get used to it, it's not as bad, but I just don't prefer the double punch hole. But again, once you use it, you really won't notice it that much, but it's really up to the person, so you have to decide there. But you have Android 10 with the Realme UI, which honestly reminds me a lot of MIUI, so they're kind of similar. You have a lot of customization, stuff like that. Overall, the UI was really smooth. Not really sure how good Realme is with pushing out updates. I don't use a lot of their phones, but you do have the Snapdragon 720G on here in the Adreno 618. Micro SD support, 128 gigs of storage and 6 gigs of RAM on here. And you also have a 3.5mm jack with just a single firing speaker, which again, I wish it had dual speakers, but the speaker sounded fine for what it was. This phone also comes with NFC. The fingerprint scanner is side mounted, and that works perfectly fine. And again, you can use face unlock if you don't want to go that route. And the cameras on here are actually really good. So you have a quad camera setup, 64 megapixel standard, 12 megapixel telephoto, and then 8 megapixel ultra wide, 2 megapixel macro, 4K video, and then that dual camera setup. So the benefit with that is that if you take a lot of group selfies and stuff like that with other people, this phone will be excellent for that. And the photo quality is pretty good on here. You get really good color, pretty good detail. I was overall really happy with the shots that I was getting, in video was pretty solid as well. So it takes pretty decent photos. And you also have all day battery life with this phone, 4,300 milliamp, 30 watt fast charging on here as well. So I was able to get through a full day, no problem. So all right, next is the LG G8. You can find this one way under 300 bucks, and it's got a full premium design. So glass and metal phone, IP68 dust and water resistant. You also have a beautiful POLED display at 6.1 inches, so it's a kind of a compact phone, I guess, for these days. And it's a 2K display or 1440p display, 564 for the PPI. It's an overall beautiful display, one of the best looking displays on this list, just super sharp. You also get Android 10 on here with the Snapdragon 855 and Adreno 640, micro SD support, 128 gigs of storage and 6 gigs of RAM. So overall, just a powerful phone. This phone you can actually do some gaming with, at high settings. Doesn't matter what you play, you can max out the graphics. So it's just a really nice experience if you want to use this for gaming. So you do have a 3.5mm jack with the quad DAC on here, as well as NFC as well, and you also have a really nice stereo speaker on here, or boombox speaker should I say, and that has really good quality too. And you also have some excellent Face ID on here, as well as your physical fingerprint scanner on the back if you want to use that. And this phone has pretty good cameras. I would say probably some of the best cameras on this list, 12 megapixel standard and 16 megapixel ultra wide. And again, you can throw Gcam port on here to get those sort of like pixel like photos for your portrait photos as well. And it has 4K video with an 8 megapixel selfie, and you do have 1080p for that. As you can see from the photos, excellent photos, very true to life when it comes to the image processing. Pretty good detail, depth of field, overall just really good cameras on here. So you do have on here kind of a small battery, but this phone does really good with battery life. So you have a 3500 milliamp battery, 21 watt fast charging, along with wireless charging on this phone, and you can get easily around 8 hours of screen on time with this guy. So it's really good on battery life. Last is the LG V50. So this is pretty much like a bigger G8 with additional cameras really. So this phone is the same designs, glass and metal phone, IP68 dust and water resistant, slightly bigger display. It's a POLED display, 6.4 inches, 1440p, 538 for the PPI, and it's an excellent display. It's just like the G8s but bigger. You still have the notch up top and everything, but you do have Android 10 on here, the same Snapdragon 855, Adreno 640. So you can think of this as if you wanted the G8 just bigger. So it does have micro SD support, 128 gigs of storage and 6 gigs of RAM. You do have stereo speakers on this phone as well, so they are pretty loud. They sound really good. The quad DAC, with the headphone jack is still on here, as well as NFC. The fingerprint scanner on the back, the physical one, works excellently. And you also have really good cameras. I think the V50 kind of has slightly better cameras than the G8, and you also have that telephoto lens. So you have a 12 megapixel wide, 12 megapixel telephoto, 16 megapixel ultra wide, 4K video, and then you have that dual camera setup up front. So if you're somebody that takes group selfies and stuff like that, you have that wide angle lens up front for that. And as you can see from the photos, the V50 takes some really good photos, very good detail, very good true to life colors. That's excellent cameras on here. And this one also is compatible with the Gcam as well. I did a whole video on where to find the APK and stuff like that. So you do have 4000 milliamp battery, 18 watt fast charging, wireless charging as well, and this is another phone that can easily go all day, but it depends on if you're on 5G. Now if you get the Sprint version, you're not going to be able to use 5G anymore since the merger, so I recommend getting the Verizon version, but I'm not in the 5G area, so I didn't feel the need to buy another V50. So excellent phone. So what do you guys think? Be sure to let me know. I'll catch you guys in the next one.